The human ship drifted silently through the endless black of space, a small silver shape against the glow of distant stars. Zira, the alien girl, hovered above the city's observation platform, her cyan skin shimmering under the light of 3 moons. Her eyes, wide and shining like liquid sapphires, fixed on the ship. It was impossible. Humans were not supposed to survive the long journeys through the cosmos, not to mention reach her city. Her people had always believed that humans were fragile, incapable of enduring the harsh trials of space. Yet here one was coming straight toward her. Her heart raced and a mix of fear and curiosity coiled inside her chest. She had watched many explorers try and fail, their ships destroyed by cosmic storms, mechanical failures, or even the cruel unpredictability of space itself, and yet this human had come through against all odds. Zira stepped closer to the edge of the platform, her hands trembling slightly. She could see the ship's small lights flicker as it adjusted its trajectory. Something about it felt alive, purposeful, determined. When the ship landed in the city's central docking bay, it was quiet, almost reverent. Unlike her people, who were tall, elegant, and sharp-edged, the human appeared small and ordinary. His dark hair was messy, his uniform wrinkled, and his movement seemed clumsy compared to the precise grace of the aliens around him. But there was a calm strength in the way he moved. He didn't rush. He didn't panic. He simply stepped forward carrying a small silver box in his hands. Zira's curiosity overpowered her caution. She descended from the observation platform, her feet barely making a sound against the smooth floor. She stopped a few meters from the human, studying him carefully. He looked up at her, and his eyes, so deep, so steady, met hers. There was no fear there, no hesitation, just a quiet determination that seemed impossible for someone so small, so human. "You made it here," Zira whispered, her voice trembling. "Why?" Her words were simple, but they carried the weight of disbelief, wonder, and something she didn't want to admit: admiration. The human smiled, faint but sincere. "I had to," he said. His voice was soft, almost humble, but it carried an unshakable resolve. "I promised someone I'd come, and I keep my promises." Zira tilted her head, unsure what to say. Her people had always believed that humans were short-lived, impulsive, weak. But this one, he didn't fit any of their expectations. He carried himself with a strange dignity, a courage that seemed to grow from within rather than from training or strength. She stepped closer, her heart thudding so loudly she thought he might hear it. "You're not like the others," she said. Her voice was barely more than a whisper. "You should have failed. You should have." She stopped, unable to finish. Words felt useless here. How could she explain the awe building inside her chest? How could she make sense of the fact that someone so human, so ordinary by her standards, had done what her people thought impossible? Michael, she learned his name from the small badge on his uniform, simply looked at her, calm and steady. "I don't think about impossible," he said quietly. "I just try." Zira's eyes widened. Try, that was the word. Not clever, not strong, not immortal, just try. And somehow that was enough to reach her city, to survive the journey that would have destroyed any other human. Somehow that was enough to make her heart beat faster, to make her feel something she hadn't felt in years. As the city lights reflected off his small silver box, Zira felt a strange mixture of fear and hope. Something about this human promised change, a shift in the world she thought she knew. She didn't understand it yet, and perhaps she never would fully. But one thing was certain: this human, fragile and determined, had arrived, and everything would be different now. Zira watched as he took his first careful steps into her world, and a single thought echoed in her mind. This human, he might just be extraordinary. The first few days in the alien city were overwhelming for Michael. Everything was different: the gravity, the air, the strange bioluminescent plants that grew along the streets. Zira watched him carefully, unsure what to expect. Her people had trained for centuries in these conditions, mastering every task with precision. Humans, she thought, could not survive even a single day here. Yet Michael moved steadily, deliberately, never giving up even when he stumbled. At first, Zira tried to ignore him. She convinced herself that he would fail eventually, that his small body and fragile frame would give out. But every day she saw him attempt the impossible. He climbed the training towers her people built to test endurance. He solved complex machines designed to confuse even her sharpest minds. He carried heavy loads, sometimes faltering, sometimes dropping items, yet he continued again and again. One afternoon, Zira stood at the edge of a testing platform, watching Michael struggle with a device meant to teach patience and problem-solving. Sparks flew, panels shifted unpredictably, and most aliens would have solved it in a single move. Michael, however, tried one approach, then another, sometimes stepping back, sometimes leaning in. Hours passed. Sweat streamed down his face. His hands were scraped and bruised, but he never stopped. Finally, he completed the task. The machine hummed smoothly, lights flashing in recognition. Zira could hardly believe it. "You did it?" she whispered, her voice trembling between shock and awe. Michael turned to her, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "I tried," he said simply. That small word carried more weight than she could measure. "I just kept trying until it worked." Zira's heart pounded. Her people believed that physical and mental limits were absolute. Humans, she had been taught, could not endure such trials. Yet here was one proving everything wrong. She felt a mix of admiration and confusion swirl inside her. This human, he was extraordinary, but not in the way her people thought strength worked. His power was not in skill or knowledge alone. It was in persistence, in the refusal to stop. Days turned into weeks, and Zira found herself drawn to him more and more. She began to watch not just his actions, but the way he thought, the way he faced failure without fear. Even when he fell, even when he struggled, he stood back up, dusted himself off, and tried again. She realized that this was not luck. This was determination, something her people had lost to centuries of perfection and pride. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the city in shades of gold and violet, Zira approached Michael. He was training, lifting stones heavier than she thought a human could move. Sweat ran down his face and his breaths were short and ragged, yet he smiled at the effort. "Doing it again and again? That's impossible," she exclaimed, frustration and awe in her voice. "Even we would struggle for this long." Michael paused, wiping the sweat from his brow, and looked at her calmly. "Maybe for you it is," he said softly, almost kindly. "But for me, I don't give up. I just keep trying. Every time I fail, I learn. Every time I try, I grow." Zira felt a strange warmth inside her chest. The alien training grounds, the machines, the impossible challenges, they were not just tests of body or mind. They were tests of heart. And Michael's heart, fragile and human as it was, beat stronger than anything she had ever seen. For the first time, she questioned everything her people had believed. Strength was not about perfection. Endurance was not about being flawless. It was about trying, over and over, even when the odds were impossible. And in that moment, Zira felt something unfamiliar. Hope. Hope that humans, though short-lived and fragile, could achieve greatness in ways even aliens could not imagine. Hope that one human could change her understanding of the universe simply by refusing to stop. And as she watched Michael rise once again to face the next challenge, she knew deep inside that this was only the beginning. The impossible was not impossible. Not if he could keep trying again and again. Days passed, and Zira found herself thinking about Michael more than she expected. At first, she tried to focus on her duties, on the order of her city and the expectations of her people. But she could not stop noticing him, how he moved, how he smiled, how he refused to give up even when everything seemed impossible. Every time he stumbled, she felt a strange tug in her chest, a mixture of worry and admiration she had never felt for anyone else. One evening, the sky glowed with the soft colors of twin moons. Zira found Michael sitting near a pool of water that reflected the stars above. He was repairing a small device, something delicate and complicated, and his hands were shaking from exhaustion, yet he did not stop. He adjusted, tried again, and smiled when it worked. Zira felt a strange warmth spread inside her. "Why do you keep doing this?" she asked softly, her voice barely louder than a whisper. She did not mean the device, but everything. Climbing, lifting, solving, trying again and again. "Why do you not give up even when it is so hard?" Michael looked at her, his dark eyes calm and steady. "Because giving up, that's the real impossible," he said. "I could stop. I could quit. But I want to see how far I can go. I want to try because trying matters. Every attempt teaches me something new." Zira tilted her head. She had never heard anyone speak like this before. Her people valued results, perfection, and efficiency. They believed effort without immediate success was wasted. But here was Michael, a human who valued trying more than success. It was strange and yet beautiful. She sat beside him quietly, watching the water ripple under the twin moons. "I do not understand humans," she admitted. "You're small, fragile, and short-lived. You should not last here, and yet you shine in a way that even the strongest of my people cannot match." Michael smiled, a soft, warm smile that reached his eyes. "I do not shine because I am strong. I shine because I try, because I refuse to stop. Maybe that is enough to make a difference." For the first time, Zira realized she wanted to try like him, not just in training or tasks, but in life. She wanted to push herself beyond the boundaries her people had set, to feel what it meant to refuse to give up. And most of all, she wanted to understand this human who could make impossibility look like an opportunity. The next days were different. Zira began helping Michael not because she had to, but because she wanted to. She guided him through the alien streets, showing him shortcuts and safe paths. She explained the strange machines and tests, sometimes laughing at his clumsy mistakes, sometimes marveling at his persistence. And Michael always listened, always tried, always learned. One afternoon they climbed the highest tower in the city, a place where even the strongest aliens sometimes hesitated. Michael struggled, his human legs shaking under the weight, his breath short and ragged. Zira felt her heart pound. She had expected him to give up at least once, yet he did not. Step by step he moved upward, never stopping, never complaining. At the top, the city stretched beneath them, glittering under the moons. Zira looked at Michael, exhausted but smiling. "You are extraordinary," she whispered. He shook his head, laughing softly. "No, I am just human, I try, and sometimes that is enough." Zira realized that she no longer felt fear or doubt around him. Instead, she felt inspiration, hope, and something deeper, a connection that went beyond admiration. She was learning from him, growing because of him, and slowly her heart began to care. As they sat on the tower's edge side by side, Zira understood something new. Humans might be fragile, short-lived, and imperfect, but they carried a fire inside them, a fire that refused to die, a fire that could change everything. And this human, this one small human, had lit that fire inside her as well, and she knew, deep in her heart, that the bond forming between them was only the beginning. The calm of the alien city was shattered without warning. Alarms blared, red lights pulsing through the streets and towers, and the sky above darkened as rogue ships descended. Explosions rocked the city, sending sparks and debris into the air. Zira's heart raced. She had trained for emergencies, for attacks, but she had never seen destruction like this. The attackers were fast, ruthless, and unpredictable. She turned to find Michael. He was already moving, analyzing the situation, calculating risks. His human frame seemed small against the chaos, but he didn't hesitate. "Zira," he called, grabbing her hand. "We need to get to the lab. There's equipment we can use to protect the city." Zira's mind screamed to retreat, to hide, but something in Michael's calm determination steadied her. Step by step they ran through the crumbling streets, dodging fire and falling debris. Michael carried a small toolkit, but it was his courage that felt heavy in her chest. The courage to move forward when the impossible surrounded them. When they reached the laboratory, the situation was worse than Zira feared. Sparks flew from damaged consoles, walls cracked under pressure, and the protective barriers were failing. Panic rose in her chest, but Michael remained steady. He started working on the machines, rewiring panels, reinforcing shields, doing the impossible over and over. Zira wanted to help, but she felt powerless. Her hands shook, her legs threatened to give out. "I can't," she whispered. "It's too much." Michael looked at her, eyes calm but intense. "Yes, you can," he said firmly. "We do it together, one step at a time. We keep trying." And somehow she found the strength to follow him. Together they worked, moving between sparks and collapsing machinery. Every time Zira faltered, Michael encouraged her. Every time he struggled, she helped him. They repeated the same actions, fixing one panel, then another, lifting debris, restoring energy. It was exhausting, terrifying, and seemingly endless. Hours passed, though it felt like days. Zira's muscles ached, her body screamed for rest, and her mind begged her to surrender. But she couldn't. Not while Michael kept trying. Not while he refused to give up even when everything seemed impossible. His persistence was contagious. With each repeated effort, her fear faded, replaced by determination she never knew she had. Finally, the lab stabilized. The machines hummed steadily. Barriers glowed with renewed strength, and the rogue ships were driven back by the city's defenses. Zira collapsed against the wall, her chest heaving. Sparks of exhaustion and relief danced in her cyan eyes. Michael approached, his own uniform torn and dirt-streaked, but he smiled. "We did it," he said, not boasting, but stating the truth. Zira shook her head, still trembling. I thought it was impossible," she whispered. "I thought we would fail." Michael crouched beside her, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "Nothing is impossible if you refuse to give up," he said softly. "We tried again and again. That's how we survived. That's how humans survive." Zira looked at him, a new understanding burning in her chest. Humans were fragile, yes, but their strength was in their hearts and their refusal to stop, even when everything told them they should. And this human, small and ordinary by appearance, had faced chaos, danger, and impossibility, and had won. She realized that this moment had changed her. The fear that had gripped her city, the panic she had felt in her chest, none of it mattered anymore. What mattered was the fire inside a human, the fire that refused to die, the fire that could inspire even an alien to rise above fear. For the first time, Zira felt true respect, true admiration, and a deeper connection than she had ever imagined. She had seen the impossible conquered not by strength alone but by will, and she knew deep inside that her heart had been touched by something extraordinary, something human. As the city slowly recovered around them, Zira stood beside Michael, watching the remnants of the chaos fade. Her chest still pounded, her muscles ached, but her spirit soared. She knew that whatever challenges came next, they would face them together. And with that thought, a spark of hope and determination ignited in her. Brighter than any danger, stronger than any fear. The city slowly healed from the attack, its glowing towers returning to calm, steady light. The streets were quiet, the chaos replaced by a fragile peace. Zira walked beside Michael, her heart still beating fast from the recent crisis. She could hardly believe what they had endured and survived. Every part of her, from her trembling hands to her racing thoughts, was full of awe for him. Michael moved steadily as if nothing had changed, carrying his toolkit and checking small devices that had been damaged. Zira watched him carefully. He was small, ordinary, and human, yet he had done what many of her people could not. He had faced danger without hesitation, repeated impossible tasks again and again, and somehow his persistence had made the impossible real. You really did it," Zira whispered, her voice a mixture of wonder and disbelief. She had expected failure, expected exhaustion, expected him to collapse at least once. Yet he had faced every challenge, stood tall against the chaos, and helped save her city. Michael shook his head with a faint smile. "No, we did it," he said. His words were calm but filled with truth. "You helped me too, Zira. We faced it together." Zira felt a warmth spread in her chest. The bond they had formed during the attack was unlike anything she had known. Humans, she realized, had a different kind of strength. They might be fragile, but their courage, their persistence, and their refusal to surrender, even in the face of absolute danger, made them extraordinary. She thought of all the times she had watched him struggle, stumble, and try again. Each attempt had taught him something new. Each failure had made him stronger, more focused. And through it all, he had never lost hope. She realized then that strength was not just in skill or power, but in the heart, in the determination to keep going when the world tried to stop you. The twin moons rose high in the sky, casting a soft silver light over the city. Zira and Michael stood on a small hill overlooking the towers, watching the lights flicker as the city returned to life. She felt her chest swell with pride, not just in him but in herself. She had faced her own fears during the attack, had acted despite panic and uncertainty, and had survived. Michael had taught her without words that courage was contagious. "I used to think humans were weak," Zira admitted softly. "I thought your bodies would fail, your minds would break, and your efforts would end in failure. But you have shown me something different." Michael looked at her, dark eyes steady and warm. "Humans are fragile, yes," he said. "But we have something that lasts longer than strength or skill. We have persistence. We keep trying, no matter how many times we fail. That is our real power." Zira nodded, tears prickling her eyes. She felt an emotion she had never experienced before, deep admiration mixed with hope, respect, and something like love. Humans were fleeting, temporary. yet their hearts could shine brighter than anything she had seen. She reached out and placed her hand on his. I understand now, she said. Doing it again and again, it's not impossible, not for someone like you. Michael smiled, a small, calm smile that made her chest ache. Sometimes the impossible is just waiting for someone brave enough to try. And I will always try. Zira's heart filled with warmth and determination. She realized that humans, though fragile, could change worlds. Not with raw power, but with persistence, courage, and the refusal to give up. Michael had shown her the impossible, not as a challenge to overcome, but as a truth to live by. As they stood together under the moons, Zira understood something vital. The heart of a human was not limited by their body or their lifespan. It was limitless in its courage, its hope, and its ability to inspire. And Michael, small and ordinary as he seemed, had changed her world forever. She squeezed his hand, and in that simple gesture, a silent promise passed between them, one that spoke of endurance, of hope, and of facing every impossible challenge together, again and again. The city was quiet now, but Zira could still feel the echoes of the attack. Buildings stood tall, but cracks marked the places where chaos had passed. Fires had been extinguished, but the memory of smoke and sparks lingered in her mind. She walked beside Michael, who carried himself as if the events of the day were simply another challenge to face. Yet Zira knew better. She had seen him push through exhaustion, fear, and danger again and again, and come out stronger on the other side. She realized, with a mixture of awe and humility, that humans were unlike any other species she had known. They were fragile, yes, prone to mistakes and failure, but their persistence made them extraordinary. Even when the world seemed to press down on them, even when everything was against them, they kept moving forward. Michael had shown her that strength was not measured in power or speed, but in heart, the courage to rise again after every fall. Zira stopped by a glowing fountain in the center of the city. Its light reflected in the pool of water, dancing like tiny stars. Michael leaned beside her, quiet, looking at the reflection. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence was comfortable, filled with the understanding they had built over days of shared trials. You know, Zira said finally, her voice soft, I thought humans were weak. I thought you could not endure what we endure. But now, I see. You are different. You are stronger than we expected. Michael smiled faintly. We have to try. We don't have the advantage of longevity or raw strength, but we have persistence. We keep trying again and again because we believe it matters, and sometimes that is enough to change everything. Zira studied him carefully. His words were simple, yet they carried a truth that resonated deep in her soul. She realized that humans did not measure their worth by limits or by how easily they succeeded. They measured it by effort, by the willingness to continue, by the refusal to surrender. Michael had survived not because he was invincible, but because he never stopped. And in that, he had become greater than any legend of her people. For the first time, Zira felt a stirring of inspiration. She wanted to push herself in the same way. She wanted to face challenges without fear, to rise after every fall, and to embrace the impossible as a chance rather than a threat. Michael had opened her eyes to a new way of thinking, a new way of living. You make it seem simple, she said, half laughing, half amazed. Trying again and again. It feels impossible to me, but you do it so naturally. Michael shook his head. It isn't simple. Every attempt hurts. Every failure is a lesson. But giving up, that's the real impossible. Once you accept that, trying again becomes the only choice. Zira nodded, feeling a fire ignite inside her. She thought of the towers they had climbed, the machines they had repaired, the chaos they had survived. She thought of the fear she had felt, and how Michael had shown her that fear could be conquered by courage and effort. She realized that humans were not limited by their bodies. They were powered by their hearts, their minds, and their will. As they walked through the recovering city, Zira reached out and took Michael's hand. It was a simple gesture, but it carried meaning. It carried trust, admiration, and the unspoken promise to face challenges together no matter how impossible they seemed. You've taught me something important, she said softly, that even the impossible can be overcome if you are willing to keep trying. Michael smiled warmly, squeezing her hand. Exactly. And that is what humans do best. We may be fragile, we may be short-lived, but we never stop trying, and sometimes that makes all the difference in the universe. Zira felt tears prick at her eyes, not from fear or pain, but from awe and gratitude. She had learned a lesson that would stay with her forever. Strength was not in perfection, nor in power, but in persistence. And in that moment, she understood why humans, despite everything, could achieve the extraordinary. As the moons rose above the city, casting silver light over the towers and streets, Zira looked at Michael and smiled. She knew that whatever came next, they would face it together, and together they could overcome anything, even the impossible. The day came when Michael had to leave. His mission was complete, and the human ship waited quietly at the city's docking bay. Zira walked beside him, her cyan eyes bright with emotion reflecting the glow of the twin moons above. She tried to steady her breathing, but her heart pounded in her chest. The thought of him leaving made the air feel heavier, her chest tighter. Michael carried his small silver box, the symbol of human effort and persistence. He looked at Zira, calm and warm, though she could see the faint weariness in his posture. "Are you ready?" he asked softly, though he knew the answer. Zira shook her head, unable to speak at first. She had grown so close to him over these weeks, watched him face impossible tasks, survive chaos, and rise again and again when others would have given up. She had learned from him, laughed with him, and come to respect him in ways she had never felt for anyone before. I don't want you to go," she whispered finally, her voice trembling. "You've changed everything here. You've changed me. How can I let you leave?" Michael knelt beside her, holding her hands gently. "Zira," he said softly, "humans are fragile. We cannot stay forever. But what we carry, the persistence, the courage, the will to keep going, that stays. I will carry it with me, and I will return, because that is what humans do. We keep trying again and again for those who matter." Tears pricked Zira's eyes. She realized that humans, though short-lived and seemingly fragile, had something her people had never truly understood. They had hearts that refused to surrender, minds that never stopped seeking, and courage that could inspire even the strongest alien. Michael had been a living example of this, and she had been lucky enough to witness it. The ship's engines hummed softly, waiting. Zira took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Promise me," she said, her voice breaking. "Promise me you will come back. Promise me that you will keep trying no matter where you go." Michael smiled, the warmth in his eyes comforting and steady. "I promise," he said firmly. "I will keep trying always. And I will return, Zira. This bond we share will not be broken by distance or time or anything else." She nodded, letting herself believe him, letting herself feel the courage he had always shown her. She pressed her hand to his, a silent acknowledgement of their shared struggle, their friendship, and something deeper, something that could not be measured in words alone. As the ship lifted, silver against the twin moons, Zira watched until it disappeared into the stars. She felt a strange emptiness in her chest, but it was paired with warmth and hope. Michael had taught her a lesson she would never forget. The impossible was not a wall to stop you. It was a challenge to rise above. Again and again. Her people whispered about the human who had faced danger without fear, who had completed impossible tasks, who had inspired even an alien to push beyond limits. But Zira knew the truth. It was not just the victories that mattered, it was the courage, the persistence, and the heart behind them. Days passed, and Zira returned to her duties, but everything felt different. The towers, the streets, the city itself seemed smaller in comparison to the lessons Michael had taught her. Every time she faced a challenge, she remembered his words. Giving up is the real impossible. And she found herself trying, again and again, stronger, braver, and more determined than ever before. Months later, when the twin moons rose high in the sky, she would sometimes stand at the observation platform, looking at the stars, imagining a small silver ship moving among them. She would smile softly, knowing that somewhere, Michael was trying, learning, and living exactly as he had promised. And deep in her heart, Zira carried a fire of courage, hope and admiration that no time, no distance, no impossibility could ever extinguish. Humans were fragile, yes, but they were extraordinary, capable of changing worlds, hearts, and destinies. And Michael, small and ordinary as he seemed, had proven it to her. Zira whispered into the night sky, her voice barely audible over the gentle hum of the city. "I will wait. And I will try too, again and again, like you." The stars above seemed to shine brighter, as if answering her promise, as if the impossible had become possible because of one human heart. and the bond it had forged with an alien girl who would never forget.